apologize. With the signing date, we obviously signed Jack Paris, kid from Fenwick, that so excited to get him in our program. I would say early fall, Pat Ryan brought me some clips on him, some clips that show just his jump from his junior film to his senior film. Obviously tags the head coach at Fenwick, Tagliabue, really just emphasized how much of a good player he was, and I would say, especially at that time of the year, we don't have a lot of scholarships left, and you see these juniors that take big jumps their senior year, and I thought Jack was a great example of that. And when you watch his film, just very, very explosive, very dynamic, good awareness, plays extremely hard in the league he plays in, and to hear the coaches talk about him, to play against him, just kind of raised my awareness, but also because of what I witnessed in recruiting here at Illinois the last 4 years. I knew if I made an offer early, it would bring a lot of people in on it, and just chose to make a little bit of a walk quietly, and about a week before signing day, reached out to Tagliabue and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And basically made arrangements for the official visit. I hadn't had a chance to sit down with Jack at that point, and once I sat down with him and his parents, just realized this is somebody I want in our program. So signed him, excited to get him. He kind of joins the list. That last signing date, I think Matt Bailey was our first. Our second was Mac Rusetich, and our last was Tanner Heckel. And just those three guys have come in and done a lot of great things, and I'm excited to see exactly where he can go. So the next congratulations is probably to Sid, the Super Bowl champ. I know he's doing a Super Bowl parade right now. I shot him a text before, during, and after the game. Not during the game, but after the game, just congratulations, to enjoy the process. I'm super excited for him and what his career is. It was classic. It was probably Wednesday or Thursday of game week, and I shot him a text and just said, hey, hope you're enjoying the week. And he said, next time I'm coming back as a starting safety, right? Like, he's just always thinking about what's in front of him, what's ahead of him. I thought it was pretty interesting to see Jalen Hurts did an interview that they asked him who was kind of the guy that was the unsung hero on the football team, on his team, and he made reference to Sid, and it just kind of shows the effect that he's had on an NFL organization, just like he had an effect on us here at Illinois. So super excited. Actually, ironically, was out in the weight room today watching some of our crews work out, and I looked upstairs and on the treadmill with Johnny Newton. So I was able to see Johnny. He's in town, I guess. And Terrence Shannon getting honored on Saturday. So I said, what are you doing in town? He said, he told me that, so I didn't even know that. But got to chat with Johnny this morning and see how excited he is about his future. Really had a great year as well. So excited for all those guys to get their opportunities. Our only combine invite will obviously be Pat, mainly because most of our combine invites we got back. I know that we had conversations. I know that Gabe was on the list, Xavier was on the list, Luke was on the list, J.C. Davis was on the list. I believe Tanner was on that list, and I think maybe one or two other guys that were on the wait list. So super excited to get all of our guys back, and an opportunity that lays in front of us. Now it's kind of an interesting time. We're actually in week 4 of our 7-week winter conditioning program. It's usually gone 8, but because of the timing of the calendar this year, we're going to do a couple practices before spring practice or before spring break. We'll get 2 in, and then we'll do the remainder of our practices after spring break. We're going to change things up a little bit this year. We're going to go on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In the years past, we've done Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We just set our 4th straight academic semester GPA record. And a byproduct of that is, I always say that the University of Illinois doesn't have academic conflicts, because academics always wins. We don't ever put ourselves or put our players in jeopardy of a conflict. We adjust our schedule whenever humanly possible. So in the spring last year, we were literally meeting at 5 a.m. and on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And as much as I enjoy early mornings, I don't think it's mutually agreed upon by 110 other players. So last year at the end, I just said, hey, what's the conflict here? And there was a class that basically by university process meets at 9:30 on Tuesday, Thursdays, and creates a little bit of an academic issue. Usually we don't start our classes till about 11:30. So instead of fighting the academic world, we just adjust our schedule to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of this year. So that'll be a little bit different for you guys and our players. How that's going to play out and work out kind of tends to be determined yet. I know a lot of people have been asking about spring game. We're going to have some construction in the stadium this spring, so that was going to factor into it a little bit and all that goes into it. So I'm still kind of in the process of doing that. I'm sure at some point we'll open up. We only get 2 scrimmages during the course of the spring. And another thing that you guys obviously know because you've been around me, like during the spring, all of our players will practice and participate. But if you put yourself in a position to show me or us as a staff that you can play winning Big Ten football at a high level, I don't practice those guys a lot in scrimmage situations. So in the years past, I've had maybe 2, 3, 4 guys, 5, 6 at most that don't really scrimmage. I think I went through our roster. I have probably as many as high as 16 to 18 guys that I don't know if we'll scrimmage them during the spring just because they played at such a high level. And it kind of became apparent to me. I saw Johnny and he asked about who was at the combine, and I'm like, I never really thought about it, with just Pat, but it's really because all of our best players are back. So super excited about that opportunity in that moment. Really, other than that, obviously, even today, you saw me announce 2 more guys. The NFL is slow to announce. I don't know why it is, but when we got back from the bowl game, I knew I was going to take some hits, especially with my younger coaches. I knew we had a really, really good crew of young coaches. So the NFL has taken 3 of those guys. Dele Harding, the latest to announce, going to the Cowboys. Obviously, Kevin Richardson to the Pats, and Grant Morgan to the Giants. And then I got a call a couple weeks ago from Jacksonville, and I love shot all that goes into it. I wasn't excited to get that phone call, but Liam Cohen, the new head coach, reached out to me about Jay Kaiser, and even though Jay was in my personnel, he'd been over 10 years in the NFL and in kind of a chief of staff type role, and that's kind of what he'll be doing there with the Jaguars. So those 4 guys, an unbelievable opportunity. Clint Stidham obviously went on to Colorado State, so I'm promoting Trent Harris from the outside linebacker room, and also Alex Panos will be a co-outside linebacker coach. Those guys really handled the last 3 weeks of the season and the bowl game. I transitioned during our second bye week and moved Clint into the defensive line room with JMO, and those 3 guys, just handled that very, very well. I couldn't be more excited about what I saw from Trent and Alex in preparation for the bowl game. Our final 3 games to win those the way we did, and then in discussions with our outside linebackers, I knew that's what I want to do. I'm currently in the process of bringing also one more coach type administrative assistant role that would give us a lot of help up front on the defense side, but also help us universally across the board. So in the recruiting positions, obviously I've had some departures with Dre and obviously Jay. So kind of taking that chance to kind of just restructure and organize. I've really been working under the kind of the guidance of using our personnel department in an NFL type environment. So even though most people have just kind of caught on to it here of late, you see some NFL people have been kind of structuring the way we've been doing it since I've arrived here. Pat Hamilton has been an absolute lifesaver, and just his overall knowledge of just the University of Illinois. I think that in conjunction with me coming in, and Jay in particular with the NFL experience, really set this model up to be that way. So we'll still have some of the simple basic outlines. We'll have a college director and a high school director, but probably going to have multiple DPPs, going to have somebody that will be overseeing basically evaluations and acquisitions. So there's going to be some things that change title-wise, but also just the structure of it. So it's kind of an exciting time for us in that regards, and then we'll jump into spring ball. So with that, I'll open it up for any other questions. I guess, anything else? Huh? Oh, Mike New, yeah, also a couple guys. Mike New is a guy that I've known about kind of indirectly. I believe I met Mike maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but Mike basically will come in as our senior offensive analyst, a guy that has been incredibly successful and kind of a unique. He played in the Arena League, got his first coaching experience as an Arena League player that started coaching, and then got promoted from within and transitioned and became a head coach in the Arena League. Then because of the location, got tied into the Saints organization, spent some time in the Saints, both as a scout and as a quarterback coach. He was in the quarterback room coaching Drew Brees, probably not a bad gig. And then to go back to his alma mater and be a head coach at Ball State for the last 9 years. I know those jobs are incredibly challenging to be at his alma mater, but the people that talk about Mike, the people that have been around Mike, really had a huge influence on me. I think the position he has, very similar to what Dana was a year ago. You obviously want a good football coach, great experience, but the personality of the person in that room is incredibly valuable. And Mike made a huge impression on me, and then all my coaches. Coach Lunny had a very same kind of feeling I had when we first sat down with Mike. So he started with us on Monday and is with us right now. A couple transitional things. Houston Griffith, who was on the, well, actually we brought him in personnel. He was with our wideouts last year. Has transitioned to the defense side of the ball, and then Dan Appling too at the wide receiver position joined us as well. So super excited about some of those new guys coming in the room and where it goes.
Coach, what did you see in Trent Harris in that position as the outside linebacker coach that led you to believe he was ready to make that jump, not just as a coach, but as a recruiter too?
Yeah, well, twofold. Last year in our building, I had 20 coaches that were really coaches. Really, they were my 10 guys that we traditionally had, and because of the new rule that allowed us to put GAs and analysts and QCs on the field, I had 20 coaches. 9 of those 20 were former players of mine. I think everybody automatically assumes, during my time at Wisconsin or my time during Arkansas or my time at Illinois, but Trent was an NFL player that I worked with. I was at Miami's pro day when Coach Belichick and I went down there. He wasn't literally on our sheet. He wasn't on our evaluation list. When I started talking to Manny Diaz, ironically, who we're going to face next year at Duke, Manny was the DC at Miami, and I just kind of said, hey, I see this kid on film. He's like, Bret, like, every clinic tape I ever make, Trent Harris is the guy I use, right? Like, he just does everything to perfection, everything that we tell as coaches, and that kind of just went ding, ding, ding in my head. And then we signed Trent as a unrestricted a free agent at New England. He earned his way onto the field. I worked with him literally every day. When I was in the Patriots that first spring, Bill had me meet with all rookies, all positions, and I could just tell Trent when I would meet with the outside backers or defensive front, he would stay in, and then when I met with the DBs, he would stay in. When I met with the offensive line, he would stay in the meeting, and you could see the way that he thought about football was on a bigger scale. And then when I went to the Giants, we were low on position, and I asked him to look at Trent, and they brought him in, and then he played not only for me but also after me, and I literally started recruiting him from that point forward. I knew he'd be a good coach. He kept getting signed. He would kind of be without a team for a while, and there was 2 years ago, in 2022, I approached him about coming to work for me as a graduate assistant, and he was coming, and I believe the Bengals signed him. Somebody signed him late and put him on a futures contract, so it kind of delayed it a year, and then another year, and then last spring I called him and said, hey, what do you think? And that's when he decided he'd come, and I said, I think this rule is going to change. It's going to allow me an opportunity. So I brought him in the fall with our coaches. The impact he had, not just on our outside linebacker room, but just everybody he works with, all the coaches. Not trying to be unduly fair to him, but he reminded me a lot of myself, and the fact that like he was a good player, not because I think, and I'm not saying he didn't have great talent, but he was extremely intelligent, very effective in the way he uses his body, and a lot of times those guys who played at a high level without a lot of, and don't take me this wrong way, Trent, like you have a lot of ability, but like those guys can usually correlate to really good coaches. To be quite honest, Aaron Henry, like I know he thinks he's a first team All-American and he says that, like he was really a good player because of the way he played the game. Terrence Jameson, the same exact thing. Grant Morgan was obviously a decorated All-American player, but he played really well because of the way he played. Kevin Richardson, like it's just boom, boom, boom. So when I see guys like that, that's what piques my radar. And then, to be honest, I went into Winter Park, which is Trent's high school. I was kind of thinking about this, right? But when you talk about recruiting, I walked into that high school, and every person from the person I walked in the door, the greeter, to the principal, to the head coach, to every assistant, to every former player, Trent Harris walks on water in that building, right? And that's a place where we're currently recruiting a very good player, right? And it just reassured me that I know, because of the way the NCAA rules are now, I'll be able to put Trent into a recruiting role, and I think he'll be very effective, especially in Central Florida.
Coach, in the back
Yeah.
here, you would think it would be hard to land transfers with the number of guys that you return. Most of the guys we talked to actually seemed like they were attracted to the high number of returners that you have. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, we have 24 new people enter the building, 12 high school and 12 transfers, and I would say our transfers are very intentional, very direct. If you just kind of go case by case, each one of those guys fills a very specific role. I tell our coaches all the time, like, listen, we retained our best 7 players, in my opinion. 7 players, in my opinion, that I know were being sought out by other schools. I sit down and talk to Gabe Ackus, and he literally tells me the volume of calls he's taking from other teams, even though we got in the portal, which is alarming, but I understand it, and the amount of money that people are trying to get him to leave, and we retained him. Same thing with Xavier Scott. I know he had several opportunities to leave us. Melvin Priestley, J.C. Davis, Luke Holtmeyer. So we retained those 7, but I also went to acquire especially 3 or 4 high-end guys that we knew we want, right? And I tell our staff, when you retain your best players, and in my opinion, we went to West Virginia and maybe got their best player. We went to Wisconsin and maybe, in my opinion, might have got their best player. Like those things matter, right? And really because I was watching Hudson come in, and I saw his little brother, and I'm like, well, he's a pretty damn good player too, right? Let's make it 2 for 1, right? So that one was there, and then J-Bo, he just, I knew he played at Ball State, but I kind of had focused that out, so we worried about getting J-Bo, and then the first time I called Mike New, he's like, Coach, I'm so excited that he's joining you, and I'm like, oh, I forgot you coached him, right? Like, because you don't really call the other coaches where you're taking people from, because sometimes you don't get great information. I'm super excited about this group. I just watched those guys work out on Wednesday. It was the first time I was able to see them live, because the Wednesday before I was dealing with a personal situation, but like it was just really awesome to see those guys work. You see Kanopik, a kid that we got out of Idaho that has just literally changed his body right in front of us. Ish, Juco out of Iowa Central that's from Minneapolis. He's fit really well in that inside linebacker room. Kurt Neal and Lowry. I just Stoffel, the tight end from Mosinee, Wisconsin. Like, it's just the guys we brought in that portal world. They're the right kind of kids, and I think they fit really well. And I would tell you their early returns look really high.
Brett, with this new rule where all of these coaches can coach, all these coaches can go on the recruiting trail, how has that changed being able to evaluate a guy like Trent or Art or whoever?
Well, it's really, obviously no secret to you guys have followed him. I put Art on the road last year, so I really took Barry off, put him on. But now the way the NCAA rules are laying out, we have a lot more flexibility to put guys on the road, and it doesn't have to come from your 10, and there's a little bit more fluidity. I think even in the future it's going to be that way. To me, recruiting on the road has always been a young man's game. I don't want to try to, but it's just the relationship ability to get your foot in the door. I remember, like, I was a young coach, man. I prided myself, if somebody else was going to go in 7 schools in a day, I was going to go in 10, right? I was going to be the first one there, and I was going to be the last one to leave. And I want to hire people that think that way. And then, anytime you can have, when my coaches who played for me have an existence with me, when they can go into a home and say, I did this, right? That just opens a lot of mama's eyes, right? Like, and there's no better feeling for me than someone I trust. But now I'm going to tell you, like, I can't hire all my former guys. I love bringing it. We got 2 guys on campus now that I've never met before that we got them on, and I'm just super impressed with who they are and what they are. So I think the world of college recruiting is absolutely awesome now, especially when we're getting this even, hopefully, playing field with the revenue share and the model that's going in, and it's not about the biggest checkbook anymore. Now it's getting back to who can do with what and who can evaluate and get guys in the right position. That's huge.
Brett, I'm curious, where do you see spring ball kind of going from a schedule standpoint or whatnot? Do you see it looking more like NFL OTAs, short and sweet, or where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of changes in the last 2 years. We had kind of treated it because we were in the foundation of building this program the way we needed to, but I think for us this year there'll probably be a little bit of next year because of the roster limit of 105. I think you're going to have a lot more times where the good players will service one another. It'll be a little bit more NFL-ish, like the 2s might service the 1s and vice versa. And on top of that, when you have as many good players as we have returning, I think we'll probably have a lot of sharp, quick, clean practices. I don't think you got to stand out there and do things monotonously. It's going to be challenging. Luke, there's definitely things we want him to improve upon, but I want to see where Ethan's at. I want to see where Carson's at. I want to see where Trey's at. So to get a lot of our next 3 quarterbacks, still get work with Luke and all that goes into it, but it's a little bit. I think it's not so much what's changing in college football, but for us at Illinois, how we're changing, right? And we got to still still stay true to who we are, but the rules. We got 15. I would say in the past, you got 2 that you can't throw them out, but it's glorified walkthrough. It's shoulder, it's spiders and helmets. There's one weekend we're going to practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, but Mom's Weekend, because we have Dad's Day in the fall, we're going to have a Mom's Weekend, and on that Saturday, I believe it's April 5th, we're going to have a featured practice with our moms or people that aren't moms that fill in as moms, like if it's grandma, if it's a guardian, a sister, whoever it is, and we'll incorporate kind of a theme around that. But that'll be our only Saturday of work. We're going to practice on the Friday night of our Illinois High School Coaches Clinic to kind of let those coaches, and I really set that practice up. Even though I want us to get better, I want to see the Illinois coaches see how we work and how we treat our players. So that's a part of it. We can start official visits on April 1st of this year. So I know right now we have a visitor coming on April 3rd, 4th, and 5th he's a game changer, and a couple other guys. And so we'll incorporate spring visits like we've never done before, because I think kids are just making decisions earlier. So a little bit of that comes into factors as well. Plus, spring football is when we can truly just, I literally, there isn't any other things going on. I don't do a lot of travel. I don't have a lot of outside things going on, so I can concentrate on making our guys great for 15 practices.
Just a couple more here.
There's obviously still the 10-day spring transfer window coming in April, but
Yeah.
like right now, how do you feel about where your roster is?
Yeah, we have about a 111-man roster right now. We have one guy that is hanging fire, and so we could get to 112 here before spring ball. So we have to get down to 105, and we have 9 freshmen coming in. So we have about 17 to 18 guys that in our program right now that I honestly, over the next 2 to 3 months, we got to make some decisions, right? We got to be when we go to play Western Illinois on that Sunday, I got to be at 105. I know that, and because of that, I think I would say our roster is pretty set, but I think we'll probably have a variance of maybe 5 guys either way, right? Like, I don't know if I can predict that, there might be a couple guys leave, but I think there's probably always going to be in our mind a group of guys that you just got to be aware that they could stay or they could go, right? I think for me, the guys that we have locked in as our top 25, 30 players are pretty locked in. It's that next group of, guys that maybe there's a guy that doesn't want to be a second string right guard. Maybe there's a guy that doesn't want to be a backup D tackle, right? Maybe there's a guy that doesn't want to be the 5th outside linebacker, whatever it is. Those are the guys that you can never really predict and don't understand, but it's also a time for us at that point to have a chance to acquire other talent.
We'll finish
You
up
know,
with this one.
There's a lot of transfers that always talk about the NFL development is something that's super attractive, whether it's Johnny or the secondary. Just as a coaching staff, is that something you lean on when you're recruiting transfers across the country that I can maybe get you to the NFL?
Yeah. I obviously most kids, I would say, that come into our program have aspirations of playing in the NFL, especially the transfers. I would say that's a little bit more ready. High school kids go through it, but high school kids, you can still, ooh, look at those shoes, right? Look at that helmet. But when you're 20 years old and you're on your last opportunity to get to where you want to be, life becomes real, and you learn more and you focus more on what's really important. So I would say, without a doubt, in the transfer world, we focus a lot on that. And then, I heard you guys' interviews. Those Wisconsin guys saw Johnny play, right? I think that made a difference. I think the West Virginia, and with Hudson, like, he saw what we did throwing the ball, right? He can't be. There's a couple coaches that want to bring up my stats from 2008 when we ran the ball more than we threw it, right? And they say, well, that's what he is. Well, I'm a little bit different guy from 2008, right? So, like, everything's and then the success we've had in the back end DB wise, right? Like, I tell you, that probably what helped us keep guys, right? Like, I mean, if you're a DB in our program playing as good a football as you ever played, the foreshadow should tell you, if I just stay here and continue to do things really well, good things are going to happen, right? So, there's a little bit of everything. Every guy's a little bit different. I usually when I meet or visit with a kid for the first time, I know something that's going to click with them, or I feel something. So, I'll do something, a little thing. I'll just, go to my phone and I'll literally start Wikipedia and every player that's ever been played for me that's played at that position. I'll just literally just sit there and forward them 8, 9, 10. I got 9 tight ends playing in the league. I've had 15 plus O linemen. I'll just kind of hit it there and I'll just keep it. I don't say nothing. I just hit it, right, and then I'll copy in usually their parents or their agent or whoever, and it's really hard to avoid facts, and I think that's something that's probably working in our favor for sure.
All right, thank you guys.